Ruthless billionaire CEO dumps diabetic pregnant wife. Her revenge left him begging in court. Sign the papers, Amara. Take the settlement and disappear. That's all I'm asking. Roman Adler's voice slices through the afternoon air of his steel and glass corner office, 60 floors above San Francisco's financial district. The Golden Gate Bridge gleams in the distance, a striking contrast to the coldness between them. $10 million, he continues, sliding the divorce papers across his custom walnut desk. More than enough for a lifetime. Amara Novak places one hand protectively over her 7-month pregnant belly, the other gripping the arm of her chair to steady the trembling, not just from fluctuating blood sugar, but from heartbreak crystallizing into rage. I don't want your money, Roman. I want my husband back. The man who promised me, in sickness and health on that cliffside in Mendocino. Remember? You said my diabetes was just another mountain we'd climb together. That was before you risked everything with this pregnancy. Before you chose potential motherhood over definitely staying alive. His voice catches. Before you became. He stops, but the unspoken word hovers between them like poison. Say it, Amara whispers, her voice gaining strength. Say what you've been thinking these past months. Say it to my face, you coward. A burden. Roman's tech empire was built on calculated risks, but his eyes shift away from hers as he speaks the truth. You've become a burden, Amara. Every investor meeting I reschedule for your doctor's appointments. Every night I spend watching you check glucose levels instead of coding. Every moment wondering if today's the day your body finally fails. You're dragging me down, and I won't let you. This is your child I'm carrying. It's a medical liability. Future hospital bills. Everything I've fought to escape since watching my father die because we couldn't afford insulin. Roman's carefully cultivated Silicon Valley accent slips, revealing the harsh edges of his immigrant childhood. I'm not your father, Roman. And you're not poor anymore. No, but you're making me weak. And weakness is death in my world. Let me tell you what happens when fear disguises itself as logic. When a man worth $3 billion discovers money can't purchase courage. When a woman finds the life growing inside her is stronger than the life crumbling around her. Before you dismiss Roman Adler as another heartless tech titan, understand this. His story isn't simply about a man who failed at love. It's about what happened when that failure returned to haunt him in ways he never imagined, when the universe decided to teach him that some burdens are actually blessings in disguise. And if you think you know where this is heading, I promise you don't. Because what Amara did after Roman walked out would transform not just their lives but revolutionize the entire tech industry. Sometimes the most perfect revenge isn't served cold. It's delivered at precisely 98.6 degrees with a side of justice no one saw coming. 6 months before that devastating confrontation, Roman Adler was untouchable. His software company, Nexus Intelligence, had just launched a revolutionary AI-powered health monitoring system. Stock prices soared. Tech publications called him visionary. At 38, he possessed everything he dreamed of while growing up in a cramped apartment in Queens, watching his diabetic father ration insulin because the choice between medication and rent wasn't really a choice at all. He met Amara at a charity gala, another mandatory networking event where wealth performed compassion without practicing it. The Four Seasons Ballroom, black tie, San Francisco's tech elite celebrating something Roman had already forgotten. He was at the bar ordering scotch he didn't want when he heard the crash. A server had dropped an entire tray of champagne flutes, glass exploding across marble like digital pixels fragmenting. But instead of the expected tension, there was laughter. A woman in an emerald dress was kneeling beside the mortified server, gathering glass shards with her bare hands. It's just glass, she was saying, her voice carrying a slight Eastern European lilt. Hungarian, perhaps. It breaks, we clean it up. Life continues. No one died from spilled champagne. Ma'am, please, you'll cut yourself, the server protested. I've survived worse than a little glass. Here, let me help you. Roman found himself moving toward her before his brain registered the impulse. "You're bleeding." She looked up, and those amber eyes hit him like a system crash, not because they were beautiful, though they were, but because they looked at him without calculation, without the measuring gaze that always preceded someone assessing his net worth. "So I am," she said, examining her palm where a shard had sliced it. "Do you have a handkerchief, or is that too old-fashioned for modern tech billionaires?" "How did you know I'm a billionaire?" "The watch, Patek Philippe Nautilus, limited edition. Either you're wealthy or you have excellent taste in theft." Her smile transformed her face from pretty to radiant. He wrapped her hand with his handkerchief, noting the calluses suggesting real work, the faint scars hinting at a life of substance rather than show. "Roman Adler," he said. "I know who you are. Your health monitoring system is being tested at my clinic. You're a doctor. Amara Novak. I run a non-profit health center in the Mission District. We serve undocumented immigrants, homeless individuals, people who fall through the system's cracks. Diabetics who choose between rent and insulin. You know, the people your company mentions in press releases but prices out of your products. That's rather harsh. That's rather accurate. But I'm willing to be proven wrong. Buy me a drink to replace the champagne I'm wearing, and tell me why Roman Adler really cares about healthcare technology." He bought her that drink. Then dinner the next night. Then breakfast the morning after. Though nothing physical happened between them, just conversation stretching until dawn, she challenged everything he believed about himself, his company, his purpose. "You've built walls out of code and cash," she told him on their fifth date, sitting in her tiny apartment above the clinic. "But firewalls keep things out as much as they lock you in." Philosophical for a Tuesday. "I'm Hungarian. We're philosophical about everything. Also slightly drunk on 2 glasses of wine, I'm a lightweight." She laughed, her whole face illuminated. "Oh, and I should probably mention I'm diabetic. Type 1, diagnosed at 13. I wanted you to see me as Amara first, patient second." The irony wasn't lost on him, the health tech mogul falling for a diabetic doctor. But Amara wore her condition like armor, not weakness. She managed it with the precision of a master coder and the nonchalance of someone who'd accepted mortality as simply another variable in life's algorithm. Their first kiss happened in her clinic after hours. She was showing him around, explaining how they stretched every dollar, turned obsolete equipment into functioning miracles through innovation and determination. He'd written a check on the spot, a substantial one. "I don't want your money," she'd said, folding it and handing it back. "It's not for you. It's for them. You can't code your way into my heart, Roman. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to code my way into being someone you could respect. Why do you care if I respect you? Because you're the first person in a decade who's looked at me and seen something worth debugging." She'd kissed him then, surrounded by medical supplies and the lingering scent of antiseptic. It should have been unromantic. Instead, it was perfect. She kissed like she did everything else, with complete commitment and zero apologies. "This is a terrible idea," she said against his lips. "The worst," he agreed, pulling her closer. "I'm complicated. I'm stubborn. I work 18-hour days. I work 20. I'll never fit into your world. Then I'll hack mine to fit yours." But that was a lie, wasn't it? Roman couldn't function in any world not built on his specifications, structured by his parameters. Their relationship progressed anyway, against all logic. She moved into his penthouse but kept her apartment. He funded her clinic but never visited during business hours. They loved each other in the spaces between their real lives, in moments when they could pretend their worlds weren't fundamentally incompatible. The first time they made love was after a fight. She'd accused him of being ashamed of her at company functions. He'd accused her of being too proud to accept help with the clinic. They'd shouted at each other in his minimalist penthouse, her accent thickening with anger, his carefully neutral tech pioneer voice cracking to reveal the Queen Street Kid underneath. "You want to save everyone but yourself," she'd shouted. "You want to be saved but won't admit it," he'd fired back. "I don't need saving. Everyone needs saving. Then save me, Roman. Stop talking and save me." He'd crossed the room in 3 strides, lifted her onto the kitchen counter, and kissed her like drowning. She wrapped her legs around him, pulling him closer, their anger transforming into something elemental. When he entered her, right there in his sterile kitchen with its never-used appliances, it was like breaking through security protocols they'd both installed. "I love you," she gasped against his neck. "I'm terrified of you," he admitted. "Same thing, sometimes." They moved to the bedroom eventually, made love properly in sheets that cost more than most people's monthly income. She traced the scar on his temple from a childhood fight. He kissed the bruises on her stomach from insulin injections. 2 damaged people finding wholeness in each other's broken places. "We're going to destroy each other," she said afterward. "Probably. Is it worth it? Ask me when we're done destroying." The proposal came a year later at the clinic, of course. He'd arrived to find her teaching a teenage diabetic how to adjust insulin doses. The girl was crying, overwhelmed by the lifetime of calculations ahead. Amara was patient, gentle, showing her own insulin pump, making it normal. "See, I've been doing this for 20 years. Still alive, still beautiful, according to my boyfriend at least." She winked at the girl. "Still eating cake on birthdays. Diabetes doesn't end your life, it just requires you to write more complex code for it. Like debugging software, annoying but manageable." Watching her transform fear into hope, Roman felt something shift in his chest. This woman who faced mortality daily with such grace, who gave everything to strangers, who loved him despite his corrupted source code. "Marry me," he said when the teenager left. "Roman, you're in my workplace. Marry me anyway." "Why?" "Because you make me want to be the man my TED Talks pretend I am. Because you're the only person who calls me on my bullshit and stays anyway. Because I love you more than I fear losing you. That last one's a lie. It's a work in progress." She said yes anyway. The wedding was small, just 40 people at a coastal cliff in Mendocino. She wore a dress she'd found in a vintage shop. He wore a suit that cost more than her annual salary. When they kissed at sunset, his board members politely applauded while her clinic staff hooped and cheered. The problem started immediately, not with them but with everyone around them. His investors worried about his image married to someone working in that neighborhood. Her colleagues feared she'd lose her edge, go corporate with all that money. Both sides were right and wrong in equal measure. "Mrs. Adler," people would say at galas, and she'd laugh. "Dr. Novak," she'd correct. I kept my name but added his ring. Amara Novak Adler. Very Hungarian, very complicated, very me. She didn't fit into his world of calculated charity and strategic philanthropy. She'd corner pharmaceutical executives at parties, demanding to know why their drugs cost so much. She'd bring patient stories to board dinners, making powerful men uncomfortable with the reality behind their profit margins. "You're embarrassing me," Roman said after she'd made a venture capitalist choke on his champagne with a story about a child who died rationing insulin. "I'm embarrassing your image. There's a difference. Not in my world. Then your world needs a system update. That's not how it works." "Then how does it work, Roman?" "We smile and nod while people die. We toast with wine that costs more than a month's supply of insulin. We pretend the system isn't broken because we're benefiting from the glitches. We work within the system to change it." "You mean we work within the system to profit from it?" The fight that followed was their worst yet, but the make-up sex was their best. Angry and desperate and full of the need to prove they could bridge their worlds with their bodies if not their beliefs. Then came the pregnancy. Unplanned but not unwelcome, at least not at first. They'd been careless during a weekend at their coastal house, pretending to be normal people in love. When the test came back positive, they stared at it like a security breach. "Well," Amara said finally. "This changes the parameters." "Everything," Roman agreed, but his voice was already tight with fear. The first doctor's appointment confirmed twins. The second confirmed what Roman had dreaded: the pregnancy would be high risk. Amara's diabetes, well controlled as it was, complicated everything. The chances of complications were significant. "We can manage it," the doctor assured them. With careful monitoring, adjusted insulin protocols, and regular checkups, many diabetic women have healthy pregnancies. "Many isn't all," Roman said. "No pregnancy is without risk, Mr. Adler. But this pregnancy is riskier than most." "Roman," Amara warned. "I'm just trying to understand the statistics." "You're trying to find an excuse to panic." She was right. He was already panicking because suddenly it wasn't theoretical, it wasn't about unnamed diabetic mothers in research papers. It was about Amara, his Amara, who could die bringing life into the world. "I want you to terminate," he said that night, the words hanging in their bedroom like malware. "Excuse me?" "The pregnancy. It's too dangerous. Your blood sugars are already harder to control. Add twins. Add the stress on your body. Add all the things that could go wrong. Add life, Roman. Add our children. Add a family. I'd rather have you alive than have a family. That's not your choice to make. You're my wife. I'm a person, my own person who makes her own medical decisions. Based on emotion, not logic. Based on hope, not fear. Hope doesn't keep people alive, Amara. Medicine does. Statistics do. Then here's a statistic for you: 100% of people who live in fear are already dead, they just haven't stopped breathing yet." The fight escalated from there. He brought medical journals. She brought patient testimonials. He quoted mortality rates. She quoted success stories. They went to bed angry, woke up angrier, and somewhere in between stopped touching each other entirely. The turning point came at her 20-week appointment. The ultrasound showed 2 healthy babies developing normally, but her blood work showed something else. Her kidney function was declining, a possible early sign of preeclampsia. "We'll monitor it closely," the doctor said. "It might be nothing, or it might be everything," Roman replied. In the car afterward, Amara was quiet. Too quiet. "Say it," she finally demanded. "Say what?" "Whatever cruel thing you're thinking. Whatever justification you're building for why I should give up these babies. You could die, Amara. Actually die. Not theoretically, not statistically, but really, truly die. And for what? For the possibility of children who might not even survive. For the certainty that life is worth the risk. For the belief that love is stronger than fear. For everything you used to believe before you let terror turn you into a coward. I'm trying to protect you. You're trying to protect yourself from loss, from pain, from the possibility that something might matter more than your money and control. That's not. It is, Roman. And the saddest part is you've convinced yourself it's logic, but it's just fear wearing an expensive suit. That night, she moved back to her apartment above the clinic. Still married, but separated by more than distance. Roman buried himself in work, launching new products, expanding market reach, as if professional success could fill the Amara-shaped hole in his life. But if you've ever truly loved someone, you know substitution doesn't work. You can't replace one variable with another and expect the equation to balance. You can only suppress the error message and hope the system doesn't crash at inconvenient moments, like when he'd wake at 3 a.m. reaching for her warmth and finding only cold sheets, like when he'd see pregnant women in the financial district and wonder if Amara was taking care of herself, like when the anniversary of his father's death arrived and he had no one to remind him it wasn't his fault that poverty and diabetes had proved a lethal combination. The updates from Amara's friend Luciana came weekly, despite his requests for digital silence. She's at 24 weeks. Babies are growing well, 26 weeks. Blood sugar control is excellent, 28 weeks. Some swelling but managing. He never responded, but he saved every message, replaying them in his empty penthouse, torturing himself with updates about a life he'd abandoned. Then came the call that changed everything. Mr. Adler, this is Luciana. Amara's in labor. It's too early, only 31 weeks. She's asking for you. He almost didn't go. Almost convinced himself he'd forfeited the right. But something, maybe love, maybe guilt, maybe just the muscle memory of caring, got him into his Tesla and speeding toward San Francisco General. He arrived to find controlled chaos. Amara was in active labor. The babies were in distress, and her blood sugars were dangerously unstable. Where the hell have you been? Luciana confronted him in the hallway. She's been asking for you for hours. I didn't think I had the right. You don't. But she wants you anyway. So go be the man she thinks you can be. Just this once. He entered the delivery room to find Amara pale, sweating, fighting through a contraction. Her eyes found his, and for a moment, neither spoke. You came, she finally managed. You called. I've been calling for months, Roman. In every way except literally. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Another contraction hit, cutting off whatever response she might have made. He took her hand without thinking, and she squeezed it hard enough to hurt. Good. He deserved hurt. The babies, she gasped when it passed. They're coming too early. They're fighters like their mother. They need to be because their father's a runner. Before he could respond, alarms started blaring. Amara's blood pressure was spiking. The baby's heart rates were dropping. Everything was failing at once. We need to do an emergency C-section, the doctor announced. Now. Roman, Amara gripped his hand. If something happens, if you have to choose. Nothing's going to happen. If you have to choose between me and them, I choose all of us. All three of us. I'm done choosing fear over love. But as they wheeled her into surgery, Roman knew that some choices weren't his to make. Some variables couldn't be controlled, some outcomes couldn't be predicted. All he had left was hope, and hope, as he was learning, was something he deleted from his life long ago. The surgery was supposed to take 45 minutes. Roman knew this because he'd obsessively researched it while pacing the waiting room like a caged animal. But nothing about this was routine, not with Amara's blood sugar spiking to dangerous levels, not with the twins coming 2 months early, not with the weight of his abandonment making every second feel like penance. Luciana sat in the corner, her judgment radiating across the sterile room. You should have been here, she said for the third time. These past months, you should have been here. Working 18-hour shifts at the clinic while 7 months pregnant because she couldn't afford to hire help. Checking her blood sugars between patients. Passing out twice from hypoglycemia because she was so focused on others she forgot to eat. She could have taken the money I offered. Your guilt money. Your go away and be quiet money. She has more pride than that. Pride doesn't pay medical bills. No, but it lets her look at herself in the mirror. Something you might struggle with these days. She wasn't wrong. Roman had avoided mirrors for weeks, unable to face the man who'd called his pregnant diabetic wife a burden. The man who'd chosen fear over family. The man who'd become everything he once swore to disrupt. An hour passed, then 90 minutes. Something was wrong. Roman could feel it in the way nurses avoided eye contact as they passed, in the way the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Finally, a doctor emerged, not Amara's regular obstetrician but someone new. Someone with the kind of face that delivered bad news professionally. Mr. Adler, I'm Dr. Patel. Your wife. Ex-wife, Roman corrected automatically, then hated himself for it. Your wife, Dr. Patel continued pointedly, experienced severe complications during delivery. Diabetic ketoacidosis triggered by the stress of premature labor. Her blood became dangerously acidic. We delivered the twins successfully, but Amara suffered a series of seizures afterward. Her brain couldn't handle the metabolic chaos. We've managed to stabilize her, but she's in a coma. The combination of the diabetic crisis and neurological trauma, he paused. Mr. Adler, I need you to understand the gravity of the situation. Just tell me. There's significant brain damage. The scans show minimal activity in several regions. She's on full life support, ventilator, feeding tube, everything. Without these machines, she dies. Her body stops functioning. Whether she's already gone is a question we can't answer definitively. Roman felt the floor tilt beneath him. This wasn't supposed to happen. In his world of calculated risks and managed outcomes, this kind of chaos didn't exist. But bodies don't follow code. Death doesn't respect NDAs. The twins, he managed to ask. They're in the NICU. Baby A, the boy, is stable but needs breathing support. Baby B, the girl, is smaller but fighting hard. They'll need to stay here for several weeks minimum. Can I see them? Can I see her? Of course. But Mr. Adler, there's something else. As her next of kin, you have medical power of attorney. Amara never updated her paperwork after your separation, which means decisions about her care fall to you. The weight of that responsibility hit Roman like a physical blow. The woman he'd abandoned, called a burden, walked away from, her life was literally in his hands. Luciana stood up, her face twisted with disgust. You don't deserve that power. I know you'll pull the plug, save money, avoid inconvenience. It's what men like you do. You don't know what I'll do. I don't know what I'll do. I know what Amara would want. She would want to fight. She would want to try. She would want her children to know she didn't give up. Even if fighting means existing without living. Even if trying means bankrupting their future on false hope. See? You're already doing it. Already turning her life into a cost-benefit analysis. She was right about you. You let your money become your soul, and now you have neither. Luciana left, her condemnation hanging in the air like corrupted code, impossible to delete. Roman stood alone in the waiting room, caught between the NICU where his children fought for life and the ICU where their mother might already be gone. And that's where our story truly begins, not with abandonment, but with return. Not with failure, but with the possibility of redemption. Not with the cold calculations of a tech billionaire, but with the growing realization that some algorithms can't be optimized, some processes can't be automated, and some investments yield returns that can't be measured on any balance sheet. Because what Roman Adler couldn't know that day, what none of us can know in our darkest moments, is that sometimes when everything crashes, the system doesn't end. It simply forces a reboot. And sometimes, just sometimes, what comes back online is better than what was there before. But the true twist in this tale? While Roman would spend months by Amara's bedside, watching for signs of consciousness, learning to care for premature twins, and liquidating assets to fund her care, Amara wasn't just dreaming in her coma state. Her brilliant mind, the one that had always seen connections others missed, was working. Processing. Coding. And when she finally awakened against all medical predictions, she wouldn't just return as his wife. She would emerge with the breakthrough algorithm that had formed in her unconscious mind, one that would revolutionize diabetes care forever and make her not just his equal, but his superior in the industry he once dominated. Roman had abandoned Amara when she needed him most. His revenge? Making him kneel before her in court. Not in divorce proceedings, but in a patent infringement case where he would have to publicly acknowledge that his company's most profitable innovation had been stolen from the very woman he once called a burden. Some lessons cost everything to learn. And some burdens, as Roman Adler would discover, are actually the blessings that save us from ourselves. He went to the twins first. A coward's choice, maybe, but he needed to see what Amara had been fighting for. The NICU was its own kind of purgatory, tiny humans in plastic wombs, more machine than baby. The boy was larger, maybe 3 pounds, with Roman's dark hair already visible. The girl was tiny, barely 2 pounds, but her face carried Amara's determined expression even in sleep. They need names, the nurse said gently. For the birth certificates. Their mother had a list, Hungarian names, she said. Strong names for strong babies. Well, someone needs to decide. These babies can't stay nameless forever. But how could he name them? How could he make that choice when he'd forfeited the right to make any choices about this family? He stood looking at these tiny strangers who carried his DNA and Amara's spirit and felt the full weight of his failure. Can I hold them? Not yet. They're too fragile. But you can touch them. Talk to them. They recognize voices even this early. Roman reached into the incubator, his finger finding his son's impossibly small hand. The baby gripped it with surprising strength. A reflex, maybe, but it felt like a lifeline. Hello, he whispered. I'm your father. I know I don't deserve that title. I know I failed you before you were even born, but I'm here now. Too late, but here. The girl stirred at his voice, her face scrunching in what might have been recognition or might have been discomfort. But Roman chose to believe it was recognition, chose to believe that somewhere in her premature nervous system, she knew him. Your mother is. He stopped. How do you tell babies their mother might be dying? How do you explain comas and life support to beings who don't even understand breathing yet? Your mother is fighting. She's always been a fighter. You get that from her, the fighting spirit. From me, you probably got stubbornness and the tendency to run from emotion. I'm sorry about that. He stayed with them for an hour, memorizing their faces, their sounds, the way they moved in sleep. Then, because he couldn't delay anymore, he went to see Amara. She looked nothing like herself. The vibrant woman who'd challenged him in the clinic, who'd loved him despite his flaws, who'd carried these babies even as he called her a burden, she was gone. In her place was a body kept functioning by machines. Tubes down her throat, IVs in both arms, monitors tracking vital signs that only existed because of medical intervention. Oh, Amara, he breathed, sinking into the chair beside her bed. What have I done? Her hand was still warm. That was the cruelest part, warm like she might wake up any moment, might squeeze his hand back, might forgive him for everything. But the monitors told the truth, minimal brain activity, functional but not conscious. Alive but not living. I was supposed to protect you, he said to her still form. That's what husbands do, protect their wives. Instead, I was the thing you needed protection from. I became the villain in your story, and now I might have to be the villain again because someone has to decide whether you keep breathing, and that someone is me. The person least qualified to make that choice. A knock at the door interrupted his confession. It was an older woman he didn't recognize, wearing hospital housekeeping attire but carrying herself with the dignity of someone who'd seen too much to be impressed by wealth or tragedy. You're the husband, she said. Not a question. I'm Roman Adler. I know who you are. I'm Irene. I clean this floor every night. I've been watching your wife these past 12 hours. Watching her. Someone should. Someone who sees her as more than a problem to be solved. I knew her from the clinic, she treated my grandson's diabetes when we couldn't afford anywhere else. She never mentioned. She wouldn't. Amara never advertised her kindness. Just performed it like breathing, natural and necessary. Irene moved into the room, adjusting Amara's blanket with practiced care. You're thinking about letting her go. How did you? It's in your face. Same look my daughter had when her husband was on life support. The look of someone calculating whether love is worth the cost. It's not that simple. It never is. But let me tell you something, Mr. Rich Man. I've cleaned these rooms for 20 years. I've seen families make this choice hundreds of times. The ones who choose hope, even stupid hope, even expensive hope, they sleep better. The ones who choose convenience, who choose the easy ending, they carry it forever. But what if she never wakes up? What if I keep her alive for years and she's just gone? Then at least those babies will know their father tried. That when faced with the hardest choice, he chose hope over fear. Isn't that the lesson you'd want them to learn? She left him with that question, returning to her work while Roman sat with his comatose wife, wrestling with an equation that had no elegant solution. The cost of keeping Amara alive could reach millions. The emotional toll on the twins growing up with a mother who was present but absent could be devastating. But the alternative? Mr. Adler, Dr. Patel returned, tablet in hand and wearing the expression of someone about to complicate an already impossible situation. I'm Dr. Patel from Neurology. We've completed additional scans, and there's something unusual. Small, possibly insignificant, but unusual. We're seeing minimal activity in regions we'd normally expect to be dark. It's not consciousness. Not even close, but it's something. What does that mean? The brain is mysterious, Mr. Adler. Sometimes it finds pathways around damage. Sometimes those pathways lead nowhere. Sometimes they lead to recovery. We simply don't know. So you're saying there's hope. I'm saying there's activity. Whether that equals hope is a philosophical question, not a medical one. How long would we need to wait to know? Every case is different. Some people wake up in days, some in months, some never. The longer she remains in a coma, the less likely recovery becomes. But unlikely isn't impossible. Give me a number, a timeline, something concrete. If I had to make an educated guess. If she's going to recover, we'd see signs within 6 months. After that, the probability drops to nearly zero. 6 months. Roman could keep her alive for 6 months. It would cost everything financially and emotionally, but he could do it. The question was whether he should, whether extending her existence without her consent was love or selfishness. He thought about their last real conversation before the fight that ended everything. They'd been lying in bed on a Sunday morning, a rare moment when neither had anywhere to be. Amara had been tracing patterns on his chest, talking about the future. When we're old, she'd said, I want us to be the couple that still holds hands. The ones who embarrass their children with how much they still love each other. Bold of you to assume I'll age well, he'd replied. Bold of you to assume I care what you look like. I fell in love with your mind, Roman. Not your face, though the face doesn't hurt. My mind is questionable at best. Your mind is brilliant. It's just buried under all that fear and money. But I can see it. I've always been able to see it. What if you stop seeing it? What if one day you wake up and realize I'm just another tech bro who values profit over people? She'd looked at him then with such certainty it had taken his breath away. Then I'll remind you who you really are. That's what love does. It remembers the truth when we forget. But she couldn't remind him now. Couldn't tell him who he really was beneath the fear. He had to remember on his own, and Roman wasn't sure he knew how. 6 months, he heard himself say to Dr. Patel. I'll give her 6 months. And then we reassess. But for 6 months, you do everything. Every treatment, every therapy, every possible intervention. I don't care what it costs. That's a significant financial commitment, Mr. Adler. I've made significant financial mistakes. Maybe it's time I made a significant financial sacrifice. The administrator left with his answer, and Roman sat with his sleeping daughter, calculating the cost of redemption. 6 months of ICU care would cost over $7 million. The twins' NICU stay would add another $2 million. Specialists, therapies, medications, he was looking at $10 million minimum. $10 million to maybe save a woman who might not want to be saved by him. But what was money compared to the weight of his daughter sleeping trustingly against his chest? What was wealth compared to the possibility that his son might know his mother's voice? What was his entire fortune compared to the chance to undo the worst mistake of his life? Your mother would think I'm trying to buy my way out of guilt, he told the sleeping baby. And she'd be right. But sometimes guilt is just love that arrived too late. And late is better than never. The dreams changed everything, and nothing. Amara's eyes moved beneath closed lids, chasing visions no one else could see, while Roman chased hope through hospital corridors. 3 weeks became 4, 4 became 6. The twins graduated from incubators to regular bassinets. Their premature beginning became a distant memory as they gained weight with determination that would have made their mother proud. She squeezed my hand, Roman announced one morning, bursting into the NICU where Luciana was feeding his son, whom he'd finally named Matteo after Amara's father. I was talking to her about the twins, and she squeezed my hand. Reflex? Luciana said without looking up. The doctors told you, coma patients show reflexive responses. This was different. This was intentional. I asked her to squeeze if she could hear me, and she did. You wanted it to be intentional. That's not the same as it being intentional. Why are you so determined to destroy my hope? Because false hope killed my brother. Luciana finally met his eyes. He had pancreatic cancer. Doctors gave him 3 months. I spent a year believing every good day was a turnaround. Every stable scan was a miracle. I bankrupted myself on experimental treatments that did nothing but prolong his suffering. He died anyway. And I'd wasted our last time together chasing impossible futures instead of accepting present realities. This is different. Is it? Or are you just another man refusing to let go? Roman wanted to argue, but his daughter, Nora, named after Amara's grandmother, chose that moment to projectile vomit across his silk shirt. Parenthood had a way of interrupting philosophical debates with biological realities. He cleaned them both up, his movements now practiced after weeks of daily care. He'd learned their rhythms, their needs, their individual personalities emerging like gradual reveals in a slow-loading program. Matteo was contemplative, his serious eyes tracking movement with unusual focus for a newborn. He rarely cried, preferring to observe the world with what Roman had started calling his board meeting face. Nora was pure emotion, crying when unhappy, laughing when pleased, no middle ground in her tiny heart. She'd gained weight faster than her brother, as if determined to make up for her smaller start. Your mother would love how different you are, Roman told them during a quiet moment. She always said diversity was strength. Of course, she was talking about her clinic staff, not twin personalities, but the principle applies. The hospital had become his world. He'd moved his office to a nearby hotel suite, running his empire between feedings and doctor consultations. His board was restless, investors nervous about a CEO who prioritized premature babies over profit margins. Roman didn't care. For the first time in his life, something mattered more than money. Mr. Adler, Dr. Patel appeared in the doorway, the twins are ready for discharge. The words hit like a system failure. Discharge. They've reached all their developmental milestones. 5 pounds each, eating well, maintaining temperature. There's no medical reason to keep them here. But their mother can't care for them, which means you need to make arrangements. Do you have help lined up? Nannies? Family? Roman looked at Luciana, who was studiously ignoring the conversation. They'd developed an uneasy alliance over the weeks, united in caring for the twins, but divided on everything else. Luciana thought Roman was delusional about Amara's recovery. Roman thought Luciana had given up too easily. Neither was entirely wrong. I'll figure it out, Roman said. You'll need to. Premature twins require extra attention. Their immune systems are still developing. They'll need follow-up appointments, specialized care. This isn't something you can outsource entirely. I said I'll figure it out. But how did you figure out raising children when their mother was 3 floors away, technically alive but practically absent? How did you create a home for babies who'd only known hospitals? How did you become a father when you'd barely learned to be a husband? That night, Roman sat with Amara, the twins sleeping in their hospital bassinets nearby. He'd gotten special permission to bring them for these visits, convinced that their presence might trigger something in their mother's damaged brain. They're going home tomorrow, he told her still form. Our babies are leaving the hospital. I've hired nurses, bought everything the books recommend. Luciana thinks I'm foolish trying to do this alone. She's probably right. I don't know how to be a father. I barely knew how to be a husband. But I'm trying, Amara. For them, for you, for the family we should have been. Her eyes moved beneath the lids. REM sleep, the doctor said. Just dreams. But Roman had started timing them, noting patterns. The movements increased when he talked about the twins, decreased when he discussed business. As if, even unconscious, she had priorities. I've been thinking about what you said about walls keeping love in as much as pain out. You were right. I built so many walls I forgot what I was protecting. By the time I remembered, I'd locked myself out of my own life. The machines breathed their mechanical rhythm. Somewhere a monitor beeped, normal sounds that had become the soundtrack to his new existence. Nora looks like you, he continued. Same determined chin, same amber eyes. She fights everything, sleep, bottles, diaper changes, like the world is something to be conquered, not experienced. Matteo is quieter. He watches and waits, planning his moments. I think he got my tendency to overthink. Poor kid. A nurse entered to check vitals, moving around him with practiced efficiency. They'd grown used to Roman's vigils, stopped suggesting he go home and rest. This was his rest now, these one-sided conversations with the woman he'd failed. Mr. Adler. Dr. Patel appeared, tablet in hand. We've had specialists review the latest scans, and the REM activity is increasing, not just in frequency but in complexity. Her brain is active, Mr. Adler. More active than a typical coma patient. But it's not organized activity. It's not the patterns we see in conscious patients. It's like her brain is trying to restart but can't find the right sequence. Like a computer stuck in a boot loop. So what do? We wait. We support. Some patients need weeks to reorganize neural pathways. Some need months. Some never do. I wish I could give you better answers. What about experimental treatments? I've been researching. There are studies with electrical stimulation, pharmaceutical interventions. All with significant risks and minimal proven benefits. Mr. Adler, I understand your desperation, but sometimes the best treatment is time and stability. Her brain needs to heal at its own pace. Time, the one thing money couldn't buy. Influence couldn't expedite. Determination couldn't force. Roman had conquered markets, built empires, bent reality to his will through sheer force of ambition. But he couldn't make neurons fire faster, couldn't will synapses to reconnect, couldn't negotiate with a brain that had its own timeline. The next morning, discharge day arrived with all the ceremony of a funeral. Nurses who'd spent 6 weeks caring for the twins said tearful goodbyes. Doctors provided final instructions. Car seats were installed and inspected. And through it all, Roman felt like he was abandoning Amara, leaving her in this sterile place while taking the children she'd fought to bring into the world. You're not abandoning her, Luciana said, appearing as they prepared to leave. You're taking care of what she loved most. That's what she'd want. Yes, but want and reality haven't been speaking lately. So we deal with what is, not what should be. The ride home felt surreal. Roman had driven this route hundreds of times, but never with 2 tiny humans in the back seat. Never with Luciana beside him providing unnecessary directions. Never with the weight of sole responsibility crushing his chest. His penthouse looked different with babies in it. The pristine spaces suddenly seemed dangerous, all sharp edges and hard surfaces. The nursery he'd had professionally designed felt cold, like a tech showroom instead of a home. The twins seemed to sense it too, both crying in harmony as soon as they entered. "They know," Luciana said. "Babies always know when something's missing. It's just a new environment. They'll adjust." "Like you've adjusted to life without her? That's not fair. Fair is for children's games. This is life. These babies need more than you're equipped to give. Then help me. Teach me. You're their godmother. Show me how. You want me to fix your mistakes. I want you to help your godchildren. Whatever you think of me, they're innocent. They deserve better than a failing father and a bitter godmother." Luciana studied him for a long moment. Then, without a word, she picked up Nora and began walking her around the apartment, humming a low tune that seemed to calm both twins. Roman followed with Matteo, trying to match the rhythm. "First lesson," Luciana said. "Babies need movement. In the womb, they're constantly rocked by their mother's motions. Static environments feel wrong to them. So we walk, we sway, we provide the movement they've lost." For the next hour, Luciana taught how to read different cries, hunger versus discomfort versus exhaustion, how to burp efficiently, how to change a diaper on a squirming infant without getting sprayed, basic skills that Roman's money couldn't shortcut. Amara learned all this from books, Luciana said as they finally got both twins settled. Always studying, that one. Preparing for motherhood like it was another medical specialty to master. She had notebooks full of research, schedules planned, theories to test. Where are they? The notebooks. Probably at the clinic. She practically lived there those last months. Would you help me find them? I want to know what she planned, what she wanted for them. Tomorrow. Tonight, you need to learn the hardest lesson, which is sleeping when they sleep. Everything else can wait. But Roman couldn't sleep. He lay in his bed, hyper-aware of every sound from the nursery. The night nurse he'd hired was competent, professional, but she wasn't Amara. She didn't have a mother's instinct or a father's fear. She had training and a paycheck, which suddenly seemed insufficient. By 3 a.m., he was in the nursery, dismissing the nurse and taking over. Matteo needed a bottle. Nora needed a diaper change. Both needed holding, the human contact that no amount of professional care could replace. "I'm trying," he whispered to them in the darkness. "I know I'm not her. I know I'm not enough, but I'm here, and I'm trying." Nora grabbed his finger with surprising strength, her tiny hand a reminder of how much power could exist in small packages. Matteo finished his bottle and immediately fell back asleep, trusting as only infants could be. They didn't know their father was a failure, didn't know their mother was trapped between life and death. They only knew warmth and food and the voice that had been reading tech specs to them for weeks. The next day, Luciana kept her promise. They went to the clinic, babies in tow, entering Amara's other world. The waiting room was full despite the early hour. Undocumented immigrants with nowhere else to go. Homeless individuals choosing between health and shelter. The invisible population of a system that measured worth in dollars. Dr. Novak's husband, someone whispered, and suddenly Roman was surrounded by people wanting to know about Amara, offering prayers in languages he didn't recognize, pressing his hands with weathered fingers. "She saved my son," an elderly woman said in broken English. "Diabetes, no insurance. Dr. Novak, she make payment plan, $1 a week," another added. "Said health is not luxury. She delivered my grandbaby," a third contributed. "Emergency, no time for hospital. She stayed all night, no charge. Said babies don't wait for office hours. Story after story, each one a testament to the woman lying unconscious across town. Roman hadn't known. He'd funded the clinic but never understood what that money became, not just medicine and equipment, but hope for people who'd run out of options. Her office is back here, Luciana said, leading them through corridors that smelled of disinfectant and determination. I haven't changed anything. Kept thinking she'd be back any day. The office was small, cluttered, nothing like the minimalist spaces Roman inhabited. Medical journals stacked on every surface. Patient files organized with colorful tabs. And on the desk, 3 notebooks labeled "Baby Preparation" in Amara's distinctive handwriting. Roman opened the first with shaking hands. It was meticulous, filled with feeding schedules, developmental milestones, vaccination timelines, but between the practical notes were personal observations. Roman will want to hire night nurses. Let him, but make sure he does at least one night feeding himself. He needs to know the weight of 3 a.m. responsibility. The twins should learn Hungarian and English equally. Papa can teach Hungarian. Roman can teach the language of innovation. If something happens to me, make sure they know they were wanted, fought for. That their father's fear was just love wearing a disguise. That last line broke something in Roman. He stood in her cluttered office, holding her plans for a future she might never see, while their babies slept in carriers at his feet. She knew, Luciana said finally. My Amara always knew things might go wrong. It's the diabetic's curse, living with mortality as a constant companion. But she chose hope anyway. How? How do you choose hope when statistics say otherwise? Because statistics don't raise children, hope does. Statistics don't heal patients, hope does. You want to know the difference between you and Amara? You see numbers. She saw faces. Roman looked around the clinic at the staff who'd kept it running without their heart. At the patients who waited despite uncertain care. At the building itself that stood as testament to one woman's refusal to accept that poverty should equal suffering. I want to expand it, he heard himself say. The clinic. Make it what she envisioned. Free care for anyone who needs it, especially diabetics. With what money? You're already spending millions on her care. I'll find it. Sell something. Liquidate assets. Whatever it takes. And who will run it? You. Between diaper changes and board meetings. We'll find someone. Someone who sees faces, not numbers. Luciana cleared her throat. I've been running it these past weeks. Not officially, but someone had to. The patients keep coming. Then run it officially. I'll double your salary. Triple it. Whatever you need. I don't want your money, Mr. Adler. I want your commitment. This clinic was Amara's heart. If you're going to put your name on it, you better mean it. Not my name. Hers. The Novak Free Clinic. And yes, I mean it. They spent the rest of the morning going through Amara's notebooks, finding treasures in her planning, lists of books to read to the twins, songs to sing, values to instill. She'd even written letters for their future birthdays, stacked in a drawer marked, just in case. Do I open them? Roman asked Luciana. No. Those are for the twins when they're ready. When they need their mother's words. That time isn't now. The babies woke hungry and cranky, turning the office into a nursery. Roman changed diapers on Amara's desk while Luciana heated bottles in the break room microwave. The clinic's pediatrician examined both twins, pronouncing them perfect despite their father, which Roman chose to take as progress. She'll wake up, Luciana said suddenly as she held Nora. I know everyone thinks I'm naive, but I can feel it. Amara is too stubborn to leave all this unfinished. Stubbornness doesn't cure brain damage, Roman said gently. No, but it helps. I've seen her fight through impossible things. Remember when she had that severe hypoglycemic episode during her medical boards? When she treated patients during that 4-day power outage, manually calculating insulin doses by flashlight, Amara doesn't quit. This is different, Roman said. This isn't willpower. It's neurons and synapses and damage we can't quantify. Everything's about quantifying with you, isn't it? Luciana's voice held sudden heat. Maybe that's why you can't see what's obvious. She's fighting. Every day she stays alive is a fight. Every dream, every eye movement, every breath is her refusing to go. You want to quantify something? Quantify that. They left the clinic with more than notebooks. They left with purpose. Roman had calls to make, lawyers to summon, plans to draft. The Novak-free clinic would become what Amara had envisioned, a place where money didn't determine mortality. He'd sell his vacation properties, liquidate his investment portfolio, whatever it took. You're trying to buy forgiveness again, Luciana observed as they drove home. Maybe. Does it matter if it helps people? I suppose not. But Roman, you can't rebuild her entire world and expect her to wake up to inhabit it. Life doesn't work that way. Then how does it work? Messily. Imperfectly. Without grand gestures or easy redemption. You want my advice? Stop trying to be the hero of this story. Just be present in it. That night, Roman took the night shift himself, sending the nurse home. He walked the floors with crying babies, heated bottles with fumbling hands, changed diapers in the dark. By dawn, he understood why parents looked perpetually exhausted. It wasn't just the lack of sleep. It was the weight of being needed so completely, so constantly. Your mother did this alone, he told the twins as sunrise painted the penthouse gold. For 2 months, she managed alone. While I sat in board meetings and pretended you didn't exist. How did I become this person? When did I decide safety was worth more than love? Matteo blew a spit bubble, which Roman chose to interpret as sympathy. Nora slept on, peaceful for once, tiny fist curled against her cheek. They were so perfectly imperfect, these humans he'd helped create and then abandoned. Every day they grew more themselves, Matteo's thoughtful frowns, Nora's dramatic cries. Both of them carrying pieces of their parents in miniature form. The days developed rhythm. Early morning feedings. Hospital visits where Roman reported every milestone to Amara's unconscious form. Afternoon walks with Luciana, who'd extended her stay indefinitely. Evening battles with bottles and bedtime. Night wakings that felt eternal but passed in blinks. 2 months became 3. The twins started smiling, real smiles, not just gas. Roman caught Nora's first on video, her face lighting up when he made a ridiculous sound during a diaper change. Matteo's came later, quieter, a subtle upturn of lips when Luciana sang a Hungarian lullaby. She's missing it, Roman said during one of his vigils, laptop open to show Amara the videos she couldn't see. Their first smiles, their growth, the way Nora scrunches her nose exactly like you do. The grammar of coma was impossible. Past tense felt like giving up. Present tense felt like lying. Future tense felt like magical thinking. So Roman existed in linguistic limbo, matching Amara's medical one. The expansion plans for the clinic are approved, he continued his one-sided conversation. We're adding a dedicated diabetes center with remote monitoring capabilities. Testing your theory that technology can bridge access gaps when it's properly deployed. Her eyes moved rapidly beneath closed lids. The nurses said she was in another REM cycle, her longest yet. 3 hours of dreams, whatever dreams coma patients had. Roman had read every study, consulted every expert. Some said the dreams were meaningless neuron firings. Others believed they were the brain's attempt to process and heal. No one knew for certain. Mr. Adler, Dr. Patel entered with his tablet and careful expression. It's been 3 months. I'm aware. We need to discuss long-term care options. The insurance company is pushing for her to be moved to a specialized facility. I'll pay out of pocket. She stays here. Mr. Adler, at some point, we need to be realistic. The chances of recovery after 3 months. You said 6 months. You said give it 6 months before making final decisions. I said that was the outer edge of possibility. But the likelihood decreases every day, and the cost. I don't care about the cost. You should, not for yourself, but for your children. The money you're spending on potentially false hope could be securing their futures. Their future includes their mother. Does it? Or are you keeping a body alive while their actual mother is already gone? The words hit like physical blows because Roman had wondered the same thing during dark 3 a.m. moments. Was he being noble or selfish? Was his refusal to let go love or cruelty? The questions had no clean answers, just like everything else in this new life. 3 more months, Roman said finally. Give me 3 more months. If there's no improvement by then, we'll discuss alternatives. Dr. Patel left with his tablets and statistics. Roman stayed with his wife and hope. Outside, San Francisco moved through its day, indifferent to the small tragedies playing out in hospital rooms. Inside, machines breathed for a woman who used to breathe life into broken places. That evening, something shifted. Roman was telling Amara about Mateo's attempts to grab toys, demonstrating with gestures she couldn't see, when her hand moved. Not a twitch or reflex, but a deliberate motion toward his voice. Amara? He grabbed her hand, feeling for response. Can you hear me? Squeeze if you can hear me. Nothing. But her hand stayed oriented toward him, fingers slightly curled as if trying to grasp something just out of reach. Roman held his breath, afraid to hope, afraid not to. I'm here, he whispered. I'm right here. I've been here every day. The twins are beautiful, Amara. They're perfect. They need you. I need you. Please, please come back. Her fingers twitched. Maybe reflex, maybe intention, maybe just Roman's desperate imagination. But he pressed the call button anyway, summoning nurses and doctors and witnesses to what might be nothing or everything. Dr. Patel arrived, skeptical but thorough. He ran response tests, shined lights, called for immediate EEG. Through it all, Amara's hand stayed turned toward Roman's voice like a flower following sun. There's increased activity, the neurologist announced after reviewing the results. Not consciousness, not yet, but definite increased activity in the temporal lobe. She's processing auditory input more actively than before. So she can hear me? Possibly. The brain is mysterious, Mr. Adler. We're seeing signs of heightened response to familiar voices, yours specifically. Have you been here often? Every day. Twice a day. I tell her about the twins, the clinic, everything. Keep doing that. If she's in there fighting to find her way back, familiar voices might be the breadcrumbs she needs. Roman doubled his visits. He brought the twins whenever possible, their baby sounds filling the sterile room. Luciana came too, telling stories in Hungarian about Amara's childhood. The clinic staff took turns, each bringing updates about patients, procedures, plans. They created a cocoon of voices surrounding Amara with reminders of the life waiting for her return. Days passed with microscopic improvements. A finger twitch becoming a hand squeeze. Eye movements responding to specific names. Heart rate changes when the twins cried. Small signs that someone was still home in the damaged neural pathways. She's trying, Roman told Luciana one evening as they watched both twins sleep in portable cribs beside Amara's bed. I can feel it. She's trying to come back. Or you're seeing what you need to see. Maybe. But what's the alternative? Give up? Accept defeat? That's not what she would do. No, Luciana admitted. Amara never accepted defeat. Even when her blood sugar crashed during her medical school interview, she insisted on finishing, gave the best interview of her life while eating glucose tablets. The admissions committee said they'd never seen such determination. Tell her that story. Tell her all the stories. Maybe one of them will be the key. So they told stories, every visitor, every day, adding threads to the tapestry of memory they wove around her. Roman found himself talking about moments he'd forgotten, their first fight over his tendency to solve problems with money, their first shared cooking disaster when she'd made Hungarian crepes and burned them spectacularly, the way she'd looked at him when he'd finally said, "I love you," without qualifying it with logic. The twins grew during these hospital days. 4 months old now, they were hitting milestones with determined precision. Matteo could hold his head up, studying the world with those serious eyes. Nora had discovered her voice, babbling conversations with invisible friends. Both recognized Roman's voice, turning toward him with trust he wasn't sure he'd earned. "Your children are beautiful," a nurse commented during one visit. "They have their mother's spirit." "How can you tell?" "The way they fight. Premature babies often accept limitations. Yours push against every boundary. Just like Dr. Novak never accepted what diabetes meant she couldn't do. She called it her superpower once, said it taught her to plan better than everyone else, to never take a single day for granted." "Smart woman," Roman said softly. "The smartest. Which is why I can't understand." He trailed off, unable to finish the thought that haunted him, why someone so smart had chosen someone so cowardly. That night, after the twins were settled at home with Luciana, Roman sat alone with Amara. The hospital had relaxed visiting hours for him, understanding that hope had its own schedule. He held her hand, feeling the warmth that promised nothing but refused to abandon possibility. "I've been thinking about what you said about walls keeping love in as much as pain out," he said into the darkness. "You were right. I built so many walls I created a prison. And when you offered to help me escape, I chose the familiar cage over uncertain freedom." Her fingers moved against his, definite movement, not reflexive but responsive. Roman's heart accelerated, but he kept talking, afraid to break whatever spell was building. The twins smiled today. Both of them. Nora at the ridiculous face Luciana makes during bath time. Matteo at absolutely nothing, just sudden joy at existing. "I filmed it for you, added it to the hundreds of videos waiting. A whole library of moments you're missing. More movement." Her whole hand now turning to grip his with weak but unmistakable intention. Roman hit the call button but didn't let go, didn't stop talking. "I know you're in there. I know you're fighting. Take your time. We're not going anywhere. The twins need their mother. I need my wife. The clinic needs its heart. But we'll wait. However long it takes, we'll wait." The night nurse appeared, took in the scene, and immediately paged the on-call neurologist. "Is she responsive?" "She's squeezing my hand. Really squeezing, not just reflex. Keep talking to her. I'll get the doctor." But Roman had run out of words. 3 months of one-sided conversations had emptied his reserves. So instead, he did something he'd never done before, he sang. Badly, quietly, but he sang the lullaby Luciana had taught him, the one that calmed both twins. Hungarian words he barely understood, but melody that meant comfort. Amara's eyes opened. Not all the way, not focused, but open, searching, alive in a way that transcended mechanical function. Roman's voice cracked, but he kept singing, watching her fight through pharmaceutical fog and neural damage to find him. "Ro," the sound was barely breath forced past the ventilator tube, but it was her voice. Her impossible, beautiful, alive voice. "I'm here. Don't try to talk. Just rest. You're safe. You're alive. The twins are perfect. Everything's waiting for you." Her eyes found his. And in them, he saw not just recognition but something else, disappointment, anger, love, maybe all three, because even mostly dead, Amara Novak contained multitudes. The doctor arrived, tests began, machines beeped urgency. But through it all, her hand held his, weak but present. A lifeline thrown across the abyss of coma. She couldn't speak past the tubes, could barely move, but she was there, damaged but not destroyed, changed but not gone. Well, Dr. Patel said after initial tests, this is unexpected. She's showing purposeful movement, definite consciousness. We'll need extensive testing to determine the extent of function, but Mr. Adler, your wife appears to be waking up. How much of her? The question escaped before Roman could stop it. How much of her is left? That's what we need to determine. Coma recovery isn't like the movies. It's slow, often incomplete. She may have significant deficits, speech, movement, memory. We won't know until we can do full assessments. But she's alive. Really alive, not just technically alive. Yes. Against rather significant odds, Dr. Novak appears to be rejoining us. The next hours blurred into a marathon of tests and procedures. The ventilator was slowly weaned, allowing Amara to breathe on her own for the first time in months. Her throat, raw from tubes, couldn't form words yet, but her eyes spoke volumes, tracking movement, responding to questions, filling with tears when Roman showed her photos of the twins. "They're so big," she whispered when speech finally came, her voice rusty with disuse. "How long?" 3 months. "You've been gone 3 months. Gone." She seemed to taste the word, finding it insufficient. Not gone. Trapped. Could hear sometimes. Couldn't find way back. What brought you back? The song. Mama's lullaby. You learned it. Luciana taught me for the twins. They love it. You stayed. It wasn't a question, but Roman answered anyway. Every day. I'm so sorry, Amara. For everything. For leaving. For what I said. For being a coward when you needed a partner. Shoo. She lifted one trembling hand to his face. Later. Guilt later. Now babies. Need to see my babies. Roman called Luciana, waking her and the twins, not caring about the hour. Within 30 minutes, they arrived, Luciana carrying both carriers with godmother strength. The babies were fussy from being woken, but their cries filled the room with life. My loves, Amara breathed, tears streaming as Roman carefully placed Nora on her chest. The baby stopped crying immediately, some primitive recognition calming her. My little Nora, you're so beautiful. She has your temper, Roman said, supporting the baby since Amara's arms were still weak. Fights everything on principle. Good. Women should fight. She turned her eyes to Matteo in Luciana's arms. And my serious boy. Come here, little philosopher. They arranged the twins carefully on her chest, Roman and Luciana supporting them while Amara memorized faces she'd only seen in dreams. The babies seemed to recognize her too, both calming at her touch, their breathing synchronizing with hers. Dr. Patel arrived as dawn broke through the windows, finding a room transformed from death watch to reunion. His expression cycled through surprise, confusion, and what might have been joy. Dr. Novak, this is unexpected. Sorry to mess up your statistics, Amara managed, her voice stronger with use. Never apologize for beating odds. We'll need to run comprehensive tests, develop a recovery plan. You've been immobile for 3 months. There will be significant rehabilitation needed. Whatever it takes. I have babies to raise, a husband to train, a life to live. She looked at Roman then, and he saw the questions waiting, why he'd left, why he'd stayed, what happened now. But those were conversations for later, when she was stronger, when words could carry the weight of what needed saying. For now, it was enough that she was breathing on her own. Enough that their children lay peaceful on her chest. Enough that the impossible had bent just far enough to let hope through. The media got wind of the story within days. Tech billionaire's wife makes miraculous recovery, made for irresistible headlines. Roman tried to shield Amara from the attention, but she insisted on giving one interview from her hospital bed, twins in her arms. People need hope, she said when Roman protested. If our story gives even one family reason to wait, to try, then the invasion of privacy is worth it. She spoke simply about her experience, the fragments she remembered from her coma, the voices that kept her tethered to life. But mostly she talked about the clinic, about the diabetes center being built, about the need for healthcare that didn't discriminate based on bank accounts. My husband says I called him a coward once, she said, looking directly at the camera. I was wrong. Cowards don't stay. They don't spend every day talking to someone who might never answer. They don't learn lullabies in languages they don't speak. Roman proved that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing love despite terror. The interview went viral. Donations poured in for the clinic. Families dealing with coma patients reached out seeking hope. Through it all, Amara focused on recovery with the same determination she'd once applied to medicine. Physical therapy was brutal. 3 months of immobility had wasted her muscles, left her weak as the premature baby she'd fought to deliver. But she approached it like everything else, systematically, stubbornly, successfully. Your wife is remarkable, the physical therapist told Roman after a particularly grueling session. Most patients complain. She just asks for harder exercises. She doesn't believe in limits. No, she certainly doesn't. Roman had moved a bed into her hospital room, refusing to leave even as she improved. He brought the twins daily, watching her slowly reclaim her role as mother. Her hands shook at first, arms too weak to hold bottles. But she persisted, relearning her children as they learned her. They don't know me, she said one evening, watching Nora fuss in her arms. I'm a stranger who smells familiar. Give it time. You're all getting acquainted. Time, she laughed, but it was bitter. 3 months stolen. Their first smiles, first sounds, gone. Not gone. Recorded. I have hundreds of videos. Every moment I thought you might want to see. You documented their lives for me. I promised myself that if you woke up, you wouldn't have missed anything important. So I recorded everything, first bath, first smile, first time they slept through a feeding. It's all there. She cried then, not the gentle tears of joy but the ugly sobs of grief for time lost. Roman held her carefully, mindful of her still healing body, while she mourned the months stolen by biology and bad luck. I'm so angry, she admitted when the storm passed. At my body for failing, at you for leaving, at myself for not being stronger, at God for letting this happen. I'm so full of rage I don't know where to put it. Use it. Channel it into recovery. You always said anger was just passion without direction. So direct it. When did you become wise? When I realized being smart hadn't saved me from being stupid. She laughed, real this time, and kissed him carefully. Their first kiss since before, tasting of hospital air and second chances. Weeks passed in small victories. First steps with a walker. First night without oxygen support. First successful feeding of both twins simultaneously. Each milestone celebrated like the miracle it was. The clinic expansion continued under Luciana's direction with Amara consulting from her hospital bed. They hired 3 new doctors, all committed to the mission of free care. The Diabetes Center took shape, funded by Roman's liquidated assets and public donations. You're going to bankrupt yourself, Amara warned, reviewing the latest budget projections. Good. Maybe being poor again will remind me what matters. Roman, be serious. I am. I spent so long running from poverty that I forgot why I was running. It wasn't the lack of money that killed my father, it was the lack of access. The clinic ensures no one else dies for the same reason. And when the money runs out, then we find more, or we scale back, or we figure it out. But we don't stop trying. She studied him, this man who'd called her a burden and then refused to let her go. You've changed. No, I've just stopped pretending I hadn't. But it was during her 3rd month of recovery, when Amara was finally allowed to work on her laptop, that something extraordinary happened. She began coding, small projects at first, exercises for her recovering mind. But one night, Roman found her still working at 3 a.m., surrounded by notes, eyes bright with the fever of creation. "What are you doing?" he asked. "You should be resting." "I've been resting for 3 months, she said, not looking up. "Besides, this can't wait." It was there, Roman. In my dreams, while I was in the coma. The solution was there. What solution? To the algorithmic problem your company's been trying to solve, the real-time glucose prediction model that keeps failing validation tests. I saw it, all of it, while I was under. It was like my brain was running simulations the whole time, testing variables I'd never considered. Amara, that's not possible. Coma patients don't. Look. She turned the screen to show him lines of code, elegant, complex, unlike anything he'd seen before. This regression model accounts for the lag time in continuous glucose monitoring systems. It predicts dangerous drops before they happen. Not just based on insulin and food intake, but incorporating dozens of variables, stress, sleep patterns, ambient temperature, even slight variations in insulin potency from batch to batch. Roman stared at the code, then at his wife. This is revolutionary. I know. And it's mine, Roman. Not Nexus Intelligence's. Mine. This algorithm could make insulin pumps truly predictive, could eliminate the fear of nighttime hypoglycemia. Could save lives. We need to patent this immediately. We will. But on my terms. This won't be another luxury product for people who can afford it. This will be licensed openly for non-profit use, with commercial applications funding free distribution to clinics like mine. The board won't approve that. Then I'll take it elsewhere. Or better yet, I'll start my own company. Diabetes tech created by people who actually live with the disease. She wasn't bluffing. Roman could see it in her eyes, the same determination that had fought through a coma, that was rebuilding atrophied muscles, that had never accepted his assessment of what was possible. You'd compete against me. I'd invite you to join me. But yes, I'd compete against you if necessary. Some things matter more than corporate loyalty. That night marked the beginning of a new battle, not between them, but between two visions of what technology could be. Roman presented Amara's algorithm to his board, advocating for her open license model. They refused, seeing only profit potential, not human impact. So Amara, still recovering, founded Nova Health Technologies with Luciana as COO and a team of developers who'd left Nexus Intelligence to join her. The betrayal, as Roman's board called it, became the talk of Silicon Valley. The wife competing against the husband. The clinic doctor turning tech entrepreneur. The patient revolutionizing treatment. Investors flocked to Amara's startup, drawn by both the technology's promise and the compelling story behind it. Then came the lawsuit. Nexus Intelligence claimed the algorithm belonged to them, arguing that as Roman's wife, Amara's work fell under the company's intellectual property agreements. The court date was set, depositions taken, battle lines drawn. And that's how Roman Adler found himself in a federal courtroom, watching his wife, now fully recovered and radiating power, present evidence that would decide not just the fate of her algorithm but the future of diabetes care worldwide. Dr. Novak, Nexus's attorney asked during cross-examination, "Isn't it true that your husband's company provided funding for your clinic? That their technology was being tested there? That you had access to proprietary research?" "Yes to the funding, yes to the testing, no to proprietary access," Amara replied calmly. "But what's truly relevant is this. The algorithm in question came to me while I was in a coma, a coma I experienced because my husband abandoned me during a high-risk pregnancy when my medical condition became inconvenient for him. The courtroom went silent. This was the first public acknowledgement of what had happened between them. That's not relevant to the intellectual property claim, the attorney countered. It's entirely relevant. When Mr. Adler left me, he clearly established that my medical condition, my diabetic body, was separate from his life and business interests. He cannot now claim that the innovations that emerged from that same diabetic body suddenly belong to his company. She turned to look directly at Roman, seated at the plaintiff's table. You called me a burden. You said my diabetes was dragging you down. Well, that burden just created something you couldn't. That disease you feared just solved the problem your brilliant minds couldn't crack. The question before this court isn't just who owns an algorithm, it's whether corporations can claim ownership of innovations born from the very medical conditions they've refused to properly address. The judge cleared his throat. Dr. Novak, please address your responses to the court, not to the plaintiff. My apologies, Your Honor. But her eyes never left Roman's face. In them, he read not hatred but challenge, the same look she'd given him in the delivery room when she'd said she chose all of them over fear. That night, alone in the penthouse that had never felt like home without her, Roman made the hardest decision of his life. He called an emergency board meeting and delivered an ultimatum. Nexus Intelligence would drop the lawsuit and enter a partnership with Nova Health Technologies, or he would resign and publicly support his wife's company. This is business suicide, his CFO argued. Her algorithm could be worth billions. It's already worth more than that, Roman replied. It's worth doing the right thing. It's worth my children someday being proud of their father. It's worth my wife knowing that I finally understood what she's been trying to teach me. The board voted to accept his resignation. The next morning, as Amara prepared to enter the courthouse, Roman was waiting on the steps. I resigned, he said simply. The lawsuit will be withdrawn within the hour. Your algorithm is yours to use as you see fit. She studied him, searching for the catch. Why? Because you were right. About everything. About me building walls. About fear disguising itself as logic. About what matters more than money. And you want, what? A thank you? No. A chance. Not to run Nova Technologies, that's your vision, your triumph. But to help. To use what I know about scaling technology to make sure your algorithm reaches every diabetic who needs it. To be a partner, not an owner. To show our children that when their father finally understood what really mattered, he changed course. Amara didn't answer immediately. The months of recovery had changed her, made her stronger in some ways, more cautious in others. The woman who'd once forgiven so readily now weighed her choices carefully. Not as husband and wife, she said finally. Not yet. That trust needs to be rebuilt separately. But as business allies, that's a place to start. It was enough. More than he deserved, less than he wanted, but enough to build upon. 6 months later, Nova Health Technologies launched its first product, an FDA-approved algorithm integrated into existing insulin pumps via software update. Unlike most medical innovations, it launched simultaneously in premium and free versions, the former funding the latter. Clinics like Amara's around the country received the technology at no cost, while insurance companies eagerly covered it for private patients after studies showed dramatic reductions in hospitalizations. The twins' first birthday arrived with the weight of a miracle, 2 lives that almost weren't, celebrated by parents who'd almost lost everything. The party was small, family, close friends, key staff from both the clinic and Nova Technologies. No media, no spectacle, just people who understood the weight of survival. One year, Amara marveled, watching Matteo methodically deconstruct a piece of cake while Nora painted herself with frosting. We made it 1 year. Mostly together, Roman added. Together counts more than perfect. Luciana had become family, moving into an apartment in their building to be near her godchildren. She raised her glass, water, in solidarity with Amara's alcohol restrictions. To family, blood and chosen, perfect and broken, together despite everything. They toasted this unlikely clan bound by crisis and choice. The clinic staff was there, having turned the facility into everything Amara had envisioned. Dr. Patel, who still consulted on the twins' development. The nurses who'd become aunties. The village it had taken to survive. "I need to say something," Amara announced, struggling to her feet. She still tired easily, her body forever changed by what it had endured. "A year ago, I almost died bringing these babies into the world. My husband had left me. My body had betrayed me. Everything was falling apart. But people showed up, some who had to, some who chose to, some who came back when coming back was hard." She looked at Roman, who was trying not to cry into his cake. Marriage isn't a fairy tale. It's a medical emergency where sometimes one person has to breathe for both. It's choosing to stay when leaving would be logical. It's learning lullabies in languages you don't speak because love requires translation. Roman and I broke our marriage, shattered it completely. But we're building something new from the pieces. Not perfect, definitely not easy, but ours. To building from broken pieces, Luciana added, raising her glass. To stubborn women who refuse to die, Dr. Patel contributed. Later, after guests had gone and babies were dreaming, Roman and Amara sat on their balcony, San Francisco glittering below them. She was tucked against him, still too thin but gaining strength daily. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "The pregnancy? Everything that followed? I regret leaving. I regret the words I said. I regret the time we lost. But the twins? You fighting to bring them here? Never." He looked out at the city. "Even though you almost died, even though it cost everything, especially because of that, you taught me something I'd forgotten, that life isn't about avoiding risk. It's about choosing which risks are worth taking. You were worth it. They were worth it. Even if we'd lost everything, the trying would have been worth it. You've become wise. I had a good teacher. She wrote me letters in a journal, thinking she might die. Told me truths I needed to hear. Reminded me that fear was just love in disguise. I was pretty smart for someone in organ failure. You were. Are. Will be." They sat in comfortable silence. Two people who'd broken each other and chosen to heal together. Somewhere in the penthouse, a baby stirred, probably Nora who'd inherited her mother's inability to sleep through the night. Soon they'd go to her, tag-teaming parenthood like they'd learned to do. But for now, they had this moment, this balcony, this view of a city that had watched them fall apart and come together. "I love you," Roman said. Present tense, active voice, no qualifiers. "I love you too," Amara replied. Despite, because of, through all the hard parts. Is that enough? Love with prepositions. It's everything. And that's what they built in the months and years that followed, a life with prepositions. Love despite diabetes and because of babies. Hope through setbacks and around obstacles. Joy during midnight feedings and after therapy sessions. A partnership rebuilt not in spite of its breaking but because of what the breaking taught them. Nova Health Technologies grew into a pioneer of accessible medical innovation. The clinic expanded into a network, 3 locations, then 5, then 10. Free care for thousands who'd fallen through healthcare's cracks. Roman's business acumen and Amara's medical vision creating something unprecedented, sustainable innovation that didn't feel like charity. The twins grew too, these miracle babies who'd entered the world too early but refused to be delayed. Nora became a force of nature, all curls and opinions and fierce protection of her quieter brother. Matteo surprised everyone by being the risk-taker, his thoughtful nature hiding a love of calculated challenges. "He's definitely your son," Amara would say when Matteo dismantled yet another electronic device to improve it. She's definitely yours, Roman would counter when Nora organized her toys into a pretend clinic with strict rules for her stuffed patients. They were both right. The twins carried their parents' best and worst traits remixed into something entirely their own. They grew up knowing their mother had almost died bringing them into the world, that their father had almost lost himself to fear, that their family was built on second chances and stubborn hope. In the end, Roman Adler learned that burdens were just blessings too heavy to carry alone. Amara Novak learned that strength included knowing when to let others be strong for you. Together, they learned that love wasn't about avoiding storms but about choosing who you wanted beside you when they hit. And their children learned that families weren't made from perfection but from persistence. That love was a verb requiring daily conjugation. That hope was hereditary but had to be actively inherited. The story continues even now, in exam rooms and boardrooms, in product launches and clinic openings. In every diabetic who receives free monitoring technology through the Novak Foundation. In every family that stays together through medical crisis because they heard about the tech billionaire who chose love over logic. In every moment that Amara Novak draws breath, defying statistics. In every decision Roman Adler makes from love instead of fear. In every laugh from children who exist because their mother refused to see her condition as a limitation and their father finally learned that some risks are worth taking. This is their story. Not a fairy tale, but a medical record. Not a romance, but a recovery. Not perfect, but theirs, built from broken pieces into something beautiful and enduring and true. And if you're reading this wondering whether to hope or let go, whether to stay or run, whether love is worth the risk of loss, know this, there are no guaranteed outcomes. Medicine is uncertain. Life is fragile. Love is complicated. But sometimes, just sometimes, stubborn hope wins. Sometimes the people who break us are the ones who teach us how to be whole again. 5 years after Amara's awakening, the medical world gathered at the Global Health Innovation Summit in Geneva. The keynote address wasn't delivered by a pharmaceutical giant or established medical device company, but by the woman whose near death had sparked a revolution in diabetes care. Amara Novak stood at the podium, her body fully recovered but forever marked by her journey. At her side was not an assistant but her husband, Roman Adler, once Silicon Valley's most ruthless CEO, now serving as Chief Operations Officer at Nova Health Technologies. The company she had founded from her hospital bed had grown into the most disruptive force in medical technology, valued at twice what Nexus Intelligence had ever been worth. When I was in that coma, Amara told the rapt audience, my consciousness wasn't gone, it was recalibrating. My brain, freed from external input, focused entirely on the problem I'd been trying to solve for years, how to predict blood sugar fluctuations with enough accuracy to prevent emergencies. She paused, her amber eyes scanning the crowd. I emerged not just with my life, but with the algorithm that would change millions of lives. Roman watched her with undisguised admiration. The man who had once called her condition a burden now understood it had been her greatest strength. The innovative predictive modeling system she'd created during her coma had reduced diabetes-related hospitalizations by 78% worldwide. Nova Health Technologies had made him wealthy beyond his previous fortune, but more importantly, it had made him humble. In the front row sat their children, 6-year-old twins Matteo and Nora, and their 3-year-old brother Laszlo, named after Amara's grandfather. The twins were already showing the determination that defined both parents. Nora had started coding at 4, while Matteo was designing rudimentary medical devices with his building blocks. Laszlo, born against all medical advice but with comprehensive monitoring from Amara's own technology, was living proof that sometimes the greatest risks yield the greatest rewards. After the standing ovation, as photographers captured the moment for medical journals worldwide, a reporter asked the question everyone still wondered about, Dr. Novak, how did you find it in yourself to partner with your husband after he abandoned you during your pregnancy? Wasn't that lawsuit against Nexus Intelligence your revenge? Amara's smile held the wisdom of someone who had traveled to the edge of existence and returned. The lawsuit wasn't revenge, it was justice. Not just for me, but for every patient whose needs were secondary to profit margins. When Roman stood in that courtroom and publicly acknowledged that my innovation belonged to me and to the patients who needed it, he wasn't begging for forgiveness. He was finally recognizing a truth I'd always known, that true innovation comes from lived experience, not boardroom strategies. She reached for Roman's hand. As for partnership, personal and professional, we rebuilt it the same way I rebuilt my body after the coma. Slowly. Painfully. With setbacks and breakthroughs. With the understanding that what broke once will always bear scars, but those scars become part of a stronger whole. That evening, in their suite overlooking Lake Geneva, Roman found Amara reviewing code on her tablet, still perfecting, still innovating, never satisfied with good enough when lives were at stake. "Do you ever think about who we were before?" he asked, sitting beside her. "Who we might have been if everything hadn't fallen apart?" "Sometimes," she admitted. "But then I look at what Nova Technologies has accomplished. At how many children still have parents because of our monitoring systems. At how many parents still have children because insulin is now available to anyone who needs it." She set down her tablet and turned to face him fully. "The truth is, Roman, I needed to lose you to find my power. You needed to lose me to find your humanity. We needed to break to become what we are now." "And what are we now?" he asked softly. "Something better than whole," she replied. "Something rebuilt with intention, not just circumstance. Something that understands that love isn't about perfection, it's about persistence." Back home in San Francisco, their life had found its rhythm. The penthouse that had once felt like a museum was now gloriously chaotic, medical textbooks beside coding manuals, children's drawings pinned over design awards, prototype devices sharing space with toy robots. Twice weekly, Amara still worked at the original clinic, now the flagship of a network serving over 100,000 patients annually. Roman divided his time between Nova Technologies operations and mentoring young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged backgrounds, teaching them that true disruption came from solving real human problems, not just creating new desires. Every year on the anniversary of Amara's awakening, they held a private ceremony, just the two of them, after the children were asleep. They would read from the journals they'd kept during those dark months, Roman's desperate confessions to an unconscious wife, Amara's pre-written letters to children she feared she'd never know. Not to reopen wounds, but to remember the price of taking love for granted. On the 10th anniversary, they added a new tradition. Together, they deleted the divorce papers that had remained in Roman's cloud storage all these years, a digital ghost of the man he'd been, the mistake he'd almost made permanent. "Are you sure?" he asked as her finger hovered over the delete button. "We've always said we should remember everything, the good and the terrible. Some things deserve to be forgotten," she replied. "Not the lessons they taught us, but the documents themselves. That signature doesn't exist anymore. That Roman doesn't exist anymore. What about that Amara? The one who was willing to fight me in court. Who built an empire from her hospital bed. Who made me kneel before her innovations." Her smile held both mischief and wisdom. "Oh, she very much still exists. She's just chosen to love you despite knowing exactly what you're capable of at your worst. That's not forgiveness, Roman. That's informed consent." As the years passed, their story became legend in both medical and business circles, the ruthless CEO who abandoned his diabetic pregnant wife, only to find himself years later testifying under oath that her innovations had surpassed anything his company had created. The woman who emerged from a coma with not just her life but with the algorithm that would revolutionize diabetes care forever. The children born of that crisis who grew up understanding that strength comes not from avoiding vulnerability, but from surviving it. When asked about their extraordinary journey in a rare joint interview for the 20th anniversary of Nova Health Technologies, Roman answered with the clarity of a man who had spent 2 decades reflecting on his greatest failure and his greatest redemption. "I once believed that success meant controlling variables. Eliminating uncertainties. Building walls against whatever might make me weak. I was wrong. True success, in business, in family, in life, comes from embracing the very vulnerabilities I tried to escape. Amara nodded, the silver now threading through her dark hair catching the light. And true power isn't found in never falling. It's found in rising again, bringing with you all the wisdom from the depths. They still disagreed often, her medical idealism sometimes clashing with his operational pragmatism. They still fought passionately, two strong-willed innovators who saw different paths to the same destination. But they had learned the crucial difference between breaking each other and challenging each other, between walking away and working through. In their garden, where they built a small memorial to the children lost to diabetic complications before their technology became widespread, Roman often found Amara sitting quietly, her hand resting on the stone bench inscribed with her favorite Hungarian proverb, "The body breaks, but the spirit builds." "Do you ever regret any of it?" he asked her once, as they watched their grandchildren playing nearby, the next generation of a family that had almost never existed. "Regret is too simple a word," she replied, her hand finding his with the same certainty it had when she'd first squeezed it emerging from coma. "I don't regret the pain that birthed purpose. I don't regret the breakdown that forced rebuilding. I don't regret loving someone capable of both terrible abandonment and extraordinary return." She looked at him then, the same amber eyes that had captivated him across a room of broken champagne glasses a lifetime ago. "What I've learned is that love isn't a fairy tale or a business transaction. It's a medical emergency, sometimes requiring radical intervention, painful rehabilitation, and lifelong management. But also capable of the most stunning recoveries." Their story continues, not in headlines about medical breakthroughs or billion-dollar valuations, though those still come. It continues in quiet moments, Roman checking Amara's glucose levels while she sleeps, a habit formed in fear that transformed into devotion. Amara reviewing Roman's latest mentorship program for diabetic youth, challenging him to think bigger, reach further. The twins, now adults with families of their own, carrying forward both the scientific brilliance and hard-won wisdom of their parents. Young Laszlo, following his mother's footsteps into medicine while embracing his father's business acumen. It continues in clinics around the world where children no longer die from preventable diabetic complications. In courtrooms where Nova Health's legal team fights for patient access against corporate interests. In research labs where the next generation of medical technology is being developed with Amara's core principle, innovation must serve humanity, not the other way around. And it continues most powerfully in the legacy they leave, not just of medical advancement or corporate reform, but of a love story that acknowledges the darkest human capacities without surrendering to them. A story that says we are all capable of terrible mistakes and extraordinary redemption. That some journeys must break us completely before we can rebuild ourselves into something stronger. So if you find yourself standing where Roman once stood, at the precipice of choosing fear over love, control over courage, or where Amara found herself, fighting for life when others have given up hope, remember their story. Remember that sometimes the person who hurts you most becomes the one who heals you best. Remember that sometimes you must lose everything to discover what truly matters. Remember that some burdens, as Roman Adler learned in the humbling crucible of that federal courtroom, watching his wife demonstrate the brilliance he had once dismissed as weakness, are actually the blessings that save us from ourselves. And remember, as Amara Novak proved when she emerged from darkness with an innovation that would save millions, that our deepest wounds often contain our greatest gifts, if only we have the courage to examine them, the wisdom to learn from them, and the persistence to transform them into something beautiful and enduring and true.